Tuscany Estates. This was originally introduced to us back in, was it 2023, Alberto?
Yes, that's 23 here.
2023.
I can put
Thank you.
that date.
Edward, do you have extra copy for Mr. Barzani?
So
Thank you.
Miranda Homes is proposing to acquire the remaining property, Tuscany Estates planned residential development from the original developer, Quaker Engineers, and pursue their own independent conditional use and ultimately subdivision and development approval to construct additional phases out there. So there was a somewhat lengthy process over the last, what would you say, Dennis, 18 months?
Yes.
To work on a tri-party agreement between Miranda Homes, Quaker Engineering Company, and Union Township. From the township's perspective, one of the larger reasons for that agreement was some of the unfinished infrastructure work in the existing Tuscany Estates plant. Banks and engineers did a inspection of those roadways in 2023 or 2024? I don't have that letter in front of me, but we identified a number of punch list items that needed to be addressed by Quaker before the roads could be turned over to Union Township. And none of the roads in the Tuscany Estates plan of lots have been turned over to Union Township at this time that I'm aware of. So that agreement has been finalized, I believe. And as such, Miranda Homes and their consulting engineer, Gateway, are here before us to reinitiate the discussion on their conditional use.
When you say that the agreement's been, when the agreement's been consummated, whatever, has there been a deed yet from the Bruce Clausen and whatever you call those folks, to you folks, or not? Is it?
No, not that we're aware of, no, not yet.
So basically, you have an agreement for sale with, I guess, Quaker, whatever you call those folks, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
All right.
And that's one of our questions, Dennis, is the status of that.
I know, because the people in the back, we have people in the last row there that are concerned about this thing getting off center because it's been, the seller has not been the most conducive to placating the apprehensions of those folks in the back. So hopefully we get this off the wall, and because that way those people can live with some type of.
I mean, are they closing? Like, we don't know any of that information
Who's closing?
for Miranda and Quaker.
The closing won't occur until final approvals are obtained from the township.
And that should happen within the next couple months? When would you guess that's gonna happen?
We're going right now, going through the conditional use, and then we'd submit phase one, preliminary and final land development and subdivision.
So that's when the closing would occur.
And the NPDS permit is acquired,
So we're talking about another, 4 to 6 months?
from 6 to 9.
6 to 9?
Everything moves slowly.
It takes a while,
Okay.
The biggest unknown I don't want to speak for them, but the biggest unknown for these folks will be the review time for their permits, third-party permits from DEP and other reviewing agencies as needed. So.
I know it's
Meanwhile, we're gonna be left with our roads deteriorating even more over the next couple of years while this is going on. Roads that aren't fixed yet.
Do you want to address that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I drafted the agreement, I don't recall the agreement.
So I think Mr. Ross is concerned about the infrastructure punch list for the existing phases of I almost said Twin Oaks, that's a different community, sorry. For Tuscany Estates. And the provisions of the tri-party agreement that Quaker agreed to post monies in escrow with Union Township and to address the sinkholes and the incomplete sidewalk and so forth, so that those roads in that plan can be turned over to the township. Is that my understanding
Yeah,
correct?
if I am understanding this agreement correctly, none of that stuff is going to happen until the sale takes place between Quaker and Miranda. Am I wrong about that? If I am, that's fine.
I don't have the consent, don't recall, I
That
drafted
is
it.
correct.
Okay,
That's
that
the
means
agreement?
we're 2 years away from getting our roads fixed, and they currently have potholes up there and roads that are currently collapsing.
And we have that building that's still deteriorating, and now we have it, now it's graffiti all over it.
You talk about the one at the bottom,
Yes.
the one that the one that Harold I was supposed to take care of years ago.
So
Yes.
perhaps I'm misremembering, but I thought when the tri-party agreement was signed, there was a provision in there that Quaker Engineers within a certain amount of time was required to post money with the township to fix their roads.
But that
And
was with their closing,
That is true.
and you're
But-
bonded.
There is 12 months from the time that they closed, okay? And that's the way
It was
I understood it to
extended.
read, but I could be wrong. I'm not legal on this thing. But if that's the case, we're 3 years away from getting anything done, and quite
You
frankly.
just said 9 months, right?
No, you moved it up to, you gave them more time.
I think we gave them, you ended
You
up
gave 'em a
giving them
year.
a year because of the time of the year that agreement was being signed.
I don't recall that at all.
Yes, it was extended in one of the township meetings.
So let's go back, let's take one thing at a time rather than discuss these things. This building at the bottom of the hill is owned by Bruce Clausen at Quaker Engineering. Kevin, have you ever seen this building?
Yes,
Have you ever done anything with this building?
yes, we sent a violation notice and no one's contacted our office.
What do you mean, contacted? Took it to the district justice office.
Not yet, no. That would be our next step.
Why don't we just
File to magistrate.
file the district justice? And I think, Harold Danielson Bruce Clausen lives in, like, West Beth Township. You should be able to find this thing there. I don't know where old Danielson lives at, you
He
guys.
lives in Pleasant Hills, like Baldwin, right
So
over
file
his-
citations against both, or whoever the owner is. Alright, that's one thing. Now, the road situation over there, worried about the roads. If you're gonna be using the roads to take equipment, I'm sorry you're not gonna let the roads fall apart in the meantime, correct?
They will have to be bonded.
What's that?
They will have to be bonded.
Won't the township have
Who's
to
gonna
take
hold
them
them
over
up?
before you start this?
No.
We don't know the roads yet.
They don't even own the road yet. We're still stuck up.
I believe all of this is set out in the agreement. And the key thing, I think, for these people is the quicker Miranda can get approved, the quicker
I think, I agree. It's,
probably resolved. Miranda's here to be the knight, the white knight. Take this over and fix it up. Without Miranda purchasing the property, the current owner does not have the funds to address the problems. So with the monies from closing, existing problems can be addressed. I don't know the details, but it might be 12 months.
I drafted that agreement, that was my own, creation, but it's been such a long time since I looked at it, I'd have to read it again.
Yeah, so we're here looking to hopefully get recommendation to
And I don't think anyone here
Yeah.
wants, I don't think anyone here is against it, I just think the folks in the back have gone through hell with previous owners to get things done. Alright, again, you're gonna file citations against building down,
Correct.
that building. The roads, I guess if maybe we could do an agreement, like I did in another township, about the roads.
I guess I didn't realize that the agreement between, the purchase of property by Miranda from Quaker was contingent upon Township's approvals. I was not aware of that component.
Well, no, I sent you copies of the correspondence.
No, it wasn't.
Whatever I sent you correspondence,
Which, I'm not sure I know what you mean.
I don't know. We'll have to look at the agreement.
The tri-party agreement was one agreement standing on its own. Right, and then there's this-
The purpose of the tri-party agreement was to facilitate the closing on this property, because the seller at that point in time didn't have the means or the wherewithal to complete the sale of the property.
Correct, I
So
agree
the
with that.
tripartite agreement was my idea.
Yep.
That money from the closing would be put in escrow. I believe, again, don't hold me to, because I haven't looked at it.
Yes.
Not
That's
gonna recall
correct.
everything that I ever write,
Yep,
but it was, and that was to facilitate this whole thing, so that way we get a new buyer, a new owner, this thing gets off, and then help them out.
right, and I guess, just to further that point that you just made, because I completely agree with it. I wasn't aware that the purchase by Miranda from Quaker was contingent upon getting conditional use in. I didn't know that that was a requirement to
I-
consummate that purchase.
I always knows, I don't know if it's in there.
It's not.
Right, it's not part of the tri-party
It is
agreement,
not
but
part of the tri-party
apparently,
agreement.
according to what Pat's saying,
Yeah, cause they wouldn't buy a property without having approval, I mean, they're not gonna,
They're not gonna buy these problems if
Without-
they
without
don't have a
having-
project.
you know.
So,
and that's,
How much money have they spent on Gateway Engineering doing all this work? They've spent tons and tons of money,
Yes.
okay? I'm no dummy, okay? I'm a construction guy too, okay? I've had you guys work for me a million times. This is crazy, okay?
Why is it crazy?
Because there is no way that our community should be being held hostage by Quaker Engineering and the fact that Miranda has made a deal that they're not going to pay for anything until they have all the, approvals. It's basically blackmail to make you do it.
That's not.
Well, I think a piece of it though is if this wasn't happening with Miranda, the tri-party
Tri-party
agreement,
agreement.
you're being held hostage anyway.
We've been held
I
hostage
know.
for 17 years.
My
I've been there
mother
for
lived up
17
there
years.
for over 10 years.
I know you have.
And so I know what's going on up there. But if this is what it's gonna take to make things better for everybody in the long run, let's work on it.
I don't disagree.
I agree with
We
that.
have worked with, and the township has been very, very good at trying to work this all out. But once again, it's now taking all these things that have been agreed on and pushing them back. How do you let these people use these roads for this construction if you don't own them? And I don't own them, okay?
With construction will occur after closing or before closing?
After.
I'm asking this gentleman.
Oh, for the project, I mean,
Yes.
it's obviously after it's closed, we have our permits.
So construction will occur after the closing?
Yeah.
Which means, yeah,
So
yeah,
basically-
you own them then.
So basically, there'll be no construction until, are you shaking your head no, or what? I mean, what do you?
Lori's,
Was wrong when I said.
Miranda, I don't believe, Miranda's not purchasing the roads from Quaker,
No.
so
Okay.
they're supposed to be, they're just purchasing the new property.
they're purchasing the new property, and then once
With
monies have
closing
been
from the-
given
So once
between
the,
hands,
so once the
Quaker will
close,
fix it.
so once the closing is completed, there'll be no construction occurring prior to closing on the deed, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
So basically, once there's closing, then we have money going to be placed, because what it's set up is that, and again, it's been such a long time, since it's been a couple of years now, and I don't recall what's in there, totally. But once the closing is completed, money goes into the township's escrow account.
Mhm.
And at that point in time, those things that need to be remediated, if he doesn't do it, then we take it out of that account, correct?
Correct.
So that way your roads will get fixed upon that situation. I mean, again, I don't have the agreement in front of me, I don't remember everything I wrote, right, but I do know we try to protect them as much as possible with that whole situation. And what do we have, $125,000, $150,000?
$120,000 plus $138,000 bond, Dennis.
Okay, well,
I'm aware of it all.
well, you know better than I do, man, thank
I
God.
probably do.
Dennis, so there is a bond from the previous?
Again, Larry, I
yeah,
prepared that whole
yeah.
document myself.
Yeah.
Do I remember what's in it? I don't.
I remember being here for a township meeting and the bond being discussed to be released for those roads to be repaired.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's been a year or so.
It was actually while the other building inspector was here, there were letters written trying to go against the bond to get our roads fixed. Nothing ever happened of it. The bonding company kind of just let it go, didn't they?
Yeah, they were non-responsive.
They were
The
non-responsive.
bonding company got purchased by another company. And so basically this whole thing fell apart because that happened years ago. But in order to, and again, I understand your frustration, but I think the way that your party agreement was put together keeping in mind your concerns. And I know it's gonna take time, but that's how things are at times. I mean, I wish I could wave a magic wand, but I can't. But I will pull the agreement out, I'll take a look at it by next Wednesday for you. Okay?
Is there any money in a bond anymore at all? Or that's a piece we have no idea, or it's just.
They did.
Jim's correct, they did originally bond it, and there was some amount there, I believe, the vicinity that
I still think,
$138,000.
and I've seen paperwork that says that the $138,000 that it got reduced to is still in place, okay? But like I said, you have tried to go against that bond once and got no response whatsoever.
If there would be some more work on that, I mean, if there needs to be immediate repairs, can so get into that and use some of it?
I'll pull the
If we
folder
can
out,
get-
it's, like I said, it's been such a long time. We've had so many issues here in the township, it's like every time you put one fire out, another fire comes up. I'll look at the bonds.
That's a lengthy process too.
Well, then I guess our next best thing is to get moving on this.
Do we have an idea of how many existing residents are up there right now?
151.
And how many
Houses
are
or
you
residents?
proposing?
Well, it's a multiple, that's a multiple units of townhouses, patio homes, and single-family homes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had 141 were there. I think that was the number that we got the last time we were
Well,
here.
that was in 2022 and 2021, they built, I think, 4 or 5 more patio home buildings, okay, that brought on 10 more units.
Yeah, and what we're proposing to do is, we're proposing to put in, 275 single-family houses.
275
Yeah.
single families.
So for a total of, we had a total of 468, or maybe it's 426.
Okay, something I noticed on here, you have Brownsville Road, this is Route 88.
Oh, for them, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I can hold it.
I'll let you still keep talking about the letter and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, sure, I guess, Bankson did an initial review of the conditional use back in 2023, we wrote a letter at that point. We had some conversations with Gateway about some of the comments. Gateway responded to our comments when they resubmitted in June. And our office put together another letter earlier this month. Some of the comments were resolved, some of them, we modified slightly based on Gateway's responses. Some of these items they're requesting for some modifications from specific provisions of the ordinance. But basically our review comments are set forth in this letter. So some of these concerns are bigger than others. But I guess at this point, Alberto, I'll turn it over to you and let you give an overview of your plan.
Yeah, so, the first sheet that I gave you guys was the, just the existing conditions, what's there now. 173 acres, if you can see in black here, that's where we're gonna try to do the development. We've gone ahead and came up with a development that adds 275 more units. Over here in the area where there's the townhouses, currently and partially built, we're gonna continue that, but we're gonna put single family houses there. We're putting 33 single family houses. And then, the rest of the development is kind of just a continuation of the single family. So we don't have any multifamily, it's all single family. And like I said, it's 275 additional families or houses.
No more patio homes.
No, they just, yeah, they're just,
No more patio homes, we're gonna do
Yeah.
the rest finish up.
and then, as far as the plan right now, we're proposing 3 phases to do the work, and, the first phase would be kind of finish the rest of that loop there, and then the rest of it would be kind of continuation of the existing roads, to see how that goes, then after that, it's just kind of working through and getting the rest done. As I mentioned, we have the 275 houses, modifications wise, we're asking for a modification. This road that's here now existing already has this really sharp 150-foot curve. So your ordinance says 200 foot is the minimum, we're asking for 150, so that's just something that's kind of already there. The other modification is this cul-de-sac that you see here. It extends out, it's about almost 1,300 feet, at 1,289 feet to the center of the circle. And your ordinance says you can only have 1,200 feet, so we request a modification for that. Then the third item was, just regarding disturbance of steep slopes. You guys have a provision set there, and, if you look at, this is a slope map of the site, so you can kind of see how, the purple and the light blue, those are the real steep slopes. The red and the green are some of the softer slopes. You guys do have an ordinance that says you're only allowed to disturb so much percentage of the slopes, and we are exceeding that, even though we're cutting this way down in scale. I mean, the previous plan, showed the 600 and some units, and it was just,
It's on the back side.
sorry.
I can see it.
The previous plan, had a lot more units. I mean, it kind of just blew the hill. There was no thought for topography. Your ordinance has requirements of topography, so we are exceeding the percentages by a little bit, so we did put that as a modification. Also, kind of going to
Before you go any further.
Yeah.
Will that affect the modification they're asking for? Will that affect the land? Destabilize it?
I think our suggestion in that case, Larry, would be that they provide a report from a geotechnical engineer. They're gonna propose quite a bit of cuts and fills on this site to, make the roads suitable in slope and that sort of thing, so.
Okay.
and PSNR had done, back 20 some years ago, they had done the original drilling and report here, and we've asked them, Marona has asked them for a report for the phase 1 and also the remainder of the project, so that is in motion for us to provide that.
All right, thank you.
But yeah, that'd be typical for significant steep slope disturbance, or if they're proposing real steep 2-to-1 slopes, we would ask them for stability analysis there.
Now, is there a road to get out?
Yeah, so that was one of the questions that TJ had. So the existing, obviously, we have the entrance off of Tuscany coming through here, and what we're proposing is just an easement through here for, just as the previous presentation, about an emergency access road. We don't want that to be used. I mean, if you look at this neighborhood that's here now, the roads are 16 feet wide, really steep, really like sharp angles.
Yep.
So we don't want to try to promote through traffic through here. So we're thinking of having a 20-foot easement and then putting in an emergency access road through there. And that was one of the questions or one of the modifications that TJ was mentioning. Just because it would really, I drove up this road and I drove this, I mean, they're really steep, sharp roads and.
So that is something that we would need to talk about as part of Miranda's conditional use. Alberto referenced the previous presentation for Mineral Beach, and they are going to utilize an emergency access. They have 122 houses planned in that plan of lots. This is quite a few more houses, potentially up to 400 and I think it was 422, Alberta.
Yeah, it would be 416, I think it was.
426, right? So,
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's what time, yeah.
so, Union Township subdivision ordinance does have provisions for if you're more than a certain number of lots, you have to provide 2 vehicular access points to the plan, and easements to future developable land and things of that nature. So that's, a conversation point as part of this review for conditional use and hopefully ultimately approval of this is, that's quite a few houses that rely not only on Tuscany Estates Drive, but also Patterson Road is a one-way in. You know, there's no redundancy to get to any of those houses. You know, as when you step back and look at it from an urban planning standpoint, there's no other way other than Tuscany Estates Drive and Patterson Road to get to 400 and some houses. So that's a question that needs to be discussed as part of this.
Agreed.
So.
Yeah, I mean, coming up Tuscany Drive, it is pretty wide, and there is a lot of green space, so it's not like if it was blocked off, you can have an emergency vehicle jump the curb and make it.
For sure.
You know.
And Alberto's point's a real good one too. I mean, the Boyka plan is pretty well established, and it's, you know, I'm not sure when the plan of lots was laid out, but
50s,
Old.
40s.
those are pretty narrow roads, and I know that there's, you know, some concerns from at least one resident about connecting the housing
That
plans
has
together.
always been something
Uh,
that's been
I remember-
other people complaining about
I remember
that.
Yeah,
that.
so it's a touchy subject either way that we look at it, but, you know, I certainly think there's incentives to having a second connection. It makes logical sense to me to, you know, connect those. When I sit here and look at the plans, nobody else is ever gonna develop in this area, so this is the opportunity to connect the two plan of lots together. You know, but on the same token, there's
You're saying connect
Concerns.
Boyka with.
Yeah.
You may have a problem with that.
There was a problem before.
I represented Boyka Plan people back in 2000.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We know
Right,
that
but-
there's-
Yeah, if you look at the old plan too, the old plan, you know, just based on what, they did show all these roads kind of connecting through everywhere. I mean, it's 16 feet wide, you can barely get 2 cars through those roads, and then they have real sharp angles and really steep. I mean,
Yeah, and please know, we're not necessarily advocating for that. I'm just, at this point in time, as we review the conditional use, we're pointing out, hey, there's a requirement of the ordinance that there be 2 vehicular points of access to a subdivision with more than 40 lots. And, you know, it's borderline with an emergency access, whether or not that provision is met. That's a discussion that the township would need to have.
So what are we doing here today?
we're requesting conditional use for our development.
Okay. Anything else, TJ?
No, under Article 5, which governs conditional uses for Union Township, the Planning Commission first reviews an application for conditional use and makes a recommendation to the board to hold a hearing. So, you know, following through with that process, our office is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend to the township to hold a conditional use hearing. With, you know, noting that subdivision and land development applications would follow behind that when these folks get their conditional use approval.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a letter from February 11th that was given to us, and, you know, we'll be able to provide a response next week to TJ, and some of the items would be modifications, but the other items we'll be able to address.
Right.
Get that back to him.
What are you planning for those 2 yellow?
These were just 2 kind of lots that were kind of just, you know, it's at the top of the hill, they're buildable.
Okay.
So we're thinking those would be just 2 kind of like estate lots.
Okay.
They're not gonna have a road, it's just gonna be, we're gonna do flag lots and have
Okay,
2 separate driveways.
okay. And TJ, these are all retention ponds that are around here?
Yeah, that's one of our comments, Larry. You know, we received their stormwater calculations and their narrative, but not the whole stormwater set yet to review. But yeah, you're right. There, I think, what are there 5 proposed ponds? Or
We're
6
gonna have,
maybe?
we're gonna have the existing one, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there'll be quite a bit of stormwater management, stormwater retention for the project.
Another question, where the original racetrack is, in the right-hand corner there? Yeah. That land that's behind it, is that all part of Tuscany?
When you say behind, do you mean towards 43, Larry?
No, towards, would be, Finlandville and Raymore Road. Yeah, right where
Yeah.
that is there.
Yeah, I think there's this line extends over to here.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just showing kind of this being the
Yeah.
parcel we're taking over.
I'm just-
Quaker does own, there's like 9 acres that Quaker still owns that they are not selling to Miranda.
I'm-
It sits in behind Tuscany Estates.
I'm just trying to figure
Is that
out
what you're referring?
how you're gonna get a secondary entrance,
Yeah,
because I would say no.
Topography, I mean, that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
these, we even had these cul-de-sacs a lot longer, and there was just, on
Yeah,
the,
it's
on the
pretty
original
tough.
submission,
This
Yeah.
And it's just-
original racetrack,
Yeah,
there's a big drop off behind this last one.
yeah, everywhere, there's,
Okay.
that's topography.
I see that as, I see that as a sticking point, a secondary entrance. You know, like you're saying, you're talking 400 occupants, potentially 2 cars for each one, 800 cars.
Yeah, but the emergency exit isn't meant for cars to make it through, that's only.
No, I understand, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I really think 800 cars for that one route to Patterson ain't gonna fly. That's just my own opinion.
I think it's a discussion point, right?
Okay.
And, you know, when, typically in my experience, when somebody asks for a modification request, they give you some reasoning, rationale as to why you would approve or consider that modification, and I'm sure, you know, Gateway and Miranda will do that in this case. They have for the other modifications they're requesting.
I'm not saying that that's going to be like a cancellation of the project, but,
You know,
I'm
I looked,
thinking.
I kind of looked at it too, Larry, just out of curiosity, and it's really steep to connect down to Patterson Road.
Okay.
It's really, I would say probably even steeper than that to try to connect to 88. Independent of the Boyka plan, like if you wanted to run your own road down to 88, that's pretty aggressive too there.
Oh, yeah.
I've never
It's
been.
gonna be difficult.
I've never been up in that whole area up there, so that
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the plan, everything in purple is over 25% slopes, I mean, so we're only at the top of the hill, pretty much just doing some of our work, cutting a little bit and filling a little bit, then the rest of it just drops out.
But we're keeping it construction, and again, and people have to go in and out of the development. You have all these trucks going back and forth, how is that gonna cause a problem, traffic?
Well, I think construction wise, I mean, once we're in the plan, you know, we have a route, we're not gonna be, you know, the equipment's gonna stay on site. Yeah, there'll be materials and deliveries, but it's not gonna be constant
Okay.
truck coming in and out of the site.
All right.
That is a big comment in our letter, is that, you know, the status of the roads, they're not Union Township roads, so for the exact same reason that I explained to Mr. Ham in the presentation before this, it's difficult to consider a request for a conditional use for a parcel that relies on somebody else's private roads to get to. That's something that we still need to figure out.
Aren't we doing snow removal up there right now, township?
Yes,
That's what Quaker pays for it.
They haven't paid a cent yet.
Yeah,
Well,
no, and we would like to thank
hypothetically,
the township for that. They have done a very good job, and they have
Yes.
kept our roads very nice. And we have not had a bit of problem with the township, okay? But the other thing that you need to consider is the school district won't even come all the way up Tuscany Estates Drive. They currently come to Vigier, yeah.
Via Regia.
Thank you, okay? That's a dumb name. And they stop right at your street and they back their bus in, and we have nothing but traffic problems every morning and 3 times in the afternoon.
Would that change?
It probably would get worse, because
Well-
you only have one way in and one way out.
But it looks like the bus would be able to like loop
Loop around,
through.
yeah, circulate through the site, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I was gonna say.
Everything I see there is mostly cul-de-sacs and that. They currently have a way to go down your street and loop around and come out, and they won't do it. It's the school district
Well,
won't
the
that's-
do
the
it.
that's-
district
that's-
won't do it
that's-
right
that's
now
an issue.
because, yeah,
That's an issue for another day.
yeah.
All right, so if
And
there's a
that's maybe
problem,
because of
call
the weight.
the school district up. All right, go back to this situation.
So that's my recommendation, that the township, that the planning commission recommend to hold a hearing, conditional use approval.
So, I think I think you raised some salient concerns in your letter. So if someone wants to make a motion to recommend a conditional use hearing for the Miranda Homes Tuscany Estates PRD, and with special concerns as to some of the points set forth in the engineer letter of February 11th, 2025.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
We want to try to piggyback on the same one as the previous.
You're gonna try to kill me, aren't you?
Yes,
Thank
I was gonna say.
As long as we're first.
Yeah, as long as we're first.
Two before supervisors meeting.
Well, we could
5:30 and 6?
Yeah, that's what I
well,
was
we can talk to the chairman, and see what Michelle wants to do. So I'll do an email at 5:30 we'll take Middle Beach first, then we'll take you guys second and sixth.
Or is that
If
March?
that's okay with the super, with the
What did we say,
township.
March,
12.
All right, roll call, Connie. Yes. Lori, yes, Darla.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
All right.
We could just,
Dennis,
Yeah,
is there something we can do for those folks in the back?
well, I'm gonna take a look. I said, I drafted that agreement, it's been a number of years ago, probably about 2022, and I don't recall.
Right. Yeah,
I'll look at the agreement, I'll look at the bond,
okay.
I'll see what it has in there, but, if we didn't do that tripartite agreement, this project doesn't get off the ground. It just sits there, and you're still dealing with the two people you've been dealing with.
We're gonna have church service.
What?
8 o'clock.
Is that you?
Is that you, Larry?
That's my phone.
Oh,
All right, thank you.
Thought it was a-
Good night.
My
I-
grandkid.
I thought it was the
Do you have-
copier.
Do you have any extra questions?
Put that on.
Do you have a couple extra copies of this? Can you give to those folks in the back?